So greetings and salutations. The Turbojugend Radio is on the air again. And with great pleasure, I can say that one of my podcast dreams is coming true, since I've forever wanted to do a podcast about wrestling, the pop phenomena wrestling. And I'm very happy to have with me at this time Jimmy Beautiful and Kevin Mash from Turbojugend Lucha, a brand new Jugend that just been founded some months ago. And I'll be very happy to have you on this episode of the podcast, because it's going to be, I think, turning out, wrestling has so much in common with Jugend, so we'll work on discussing that. So first of all, thank you for taking your time and joining the podcast. Ever since I found out about Turbojugend Lucha, but maybe we'll start with just explaining to the audience what Turbojugend Lucha is and what does the name Lucha really mean. Steve, want to start?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, originally we're just a Facebook page of just Turbojugend members that all had just a common interest in wrestling in general, and so it started off with just most of us, and so we decided to come up with a Facebook page of the Wrestling Committee, just a little play on the name there, and mainly we'd keep each other informed of the news, and the majority of the time all of us would stay up watching the pay-per-views, and we'd all be commenting, like kind of live stream commenting on them. And so from there, really, it's as we started getting the numbers increased and the more of us joining, we decided to like open it up into a bigger page. And then once the fun chapters had started being kind of accepted again, we decided it was time to see if we could actually get fully formed a Turbojugend Lucha.
Okay, so but I was part of the voting process. Maybe Jimmy, you can chime in. You had several names to choose from, or why did you guys choose Lucha? What does Lucha really mean?
Well, Lucha is like for luchador wrestling, which is very well known in the wrestling community and also even just worldwide as a whole. But it's one of those where it just kind of, I'm still newish in the community with it, but I'm also a huge wrestling fan, so they reached out and let me in with open arms, and I was very excited. But Lucha being just the luchador wrestling style, it has a real good pop to it for when you have for putting it on a cut. It'll look good.
But what have you been to a Lucha event? Maybe explain to the audience how Lucha really works. Who's behind that? And
well, luchador wrestling, it's like it's a real high flying style where they're not the big wrestlers that you think of, like the Hogans or the Andre the Giants. They're like the Rey Mysterio is like the most famous one. He would be the person that he could do anything from any spot, and just he could be over on the top of the ropes over here, and somehow he's over on the other side of the arena, and it's in a blink of an eye, and it's that type of style.
Okay, and it hails from Mexico, right? That's where it all started.
Yeah, that's the predominant, and there's some similarities to certain Japanese styles, but yeah, that's mostly the Mexican style.
Okay, and everybody wears masks in Lucha. Is that a thing? Is that the thing, or is it Lucha? Is there any Lucha without masks?
Lucha. It's one of the most sacred things to be a Lucha wrestler. Is the whole gimmick is the mask, and it's very said that if somebody is either retiring or deaf, if a Lucha wrestler was to lose their mask or be unmasked in a match, they could never wear that mask again. So it's something to take very, very seriously within the Lucha community. And I mean, it's quite historic for Lucha wrestlers to be unmasked, because they can bring in like big thousands of crowds, like huge thousands of people, depending on the match and style. And there have been ones that have unmasked before and put it back on, but it's normally, predominantly if you lose your mask, then you remain unmasked for the rest of your wrestling career.
Okay, get it. So you at what when did you found the Jugend? Was it this year, right?
The Turbojugend Lucha. We've been about a good I'd say just coming up a couple of years now, actually. But it's only just because it's been more. It used to be a semi-private thing, really. But now we've just really, where we've opened it up, and now wrestling's becoming more popular and mainstream due to COVID. And a lot of people have been staying indoors and watching more shows, because there's like literally like every day of the week, there's always a show on now. And now where things are starting to open up again and events are being able to be attended. So we thought we'd just open it up to everyone else out welcome to join, really.
Do you think it's since the last pandemic year, do you think, as you were, I think, meaning and mentioning, that staying at home really made people within the Jugend find common interests, and really also made them found Jugens with a common topic, as you were pointing out, the fun Jugens, right? The Jugens with no relation to a certain town or place or country, right?
As just personally, I've been able to spend more time doing things like talking to other Jugend members that are around the world, or not just part of, like, I'm part of also Turbojugend Akron, not just talking to my group of people, but just going out and being able to just on the internet and chatting with people. And then you post one thing in like a Turbojugend chat group, and then all of a sudden you're invited over. Like, I got invited into Turbojugend Lucha. Like, would you be interested in doing this? Like, oh, yes, please. I will come and join you immediately. Thank you. And it's so, yeah, with having it be that we've had the time to sit down for a change, not be as busy. And then also, as Steve was saying, the amount of content that's on, and it's on just regular cable. It's not like you have to search it all out. Like, there's WWE alone has 3 shows on a week with NXT. I mean, even more if you go on the network, but just on the regular cable. And then also AEW being now the new guy coming in there and being like, oh, hey, we also have an alternative to just the regular, like the Roman Reigns and all of that type of stuff, where people get tired of it, where it's like, okay, we have the Supermen here, but then it's like, then there's AEW, where it's like, oh man, that guy just got hit in the head with a chair. Man, that reminds me of the 90s. This is a good time.
Yeah. So yeah, I also think that the AEW, the new federation, they really is pushing the sport. What I would like to ask you is, first of all, your warrior names. Do you have wrestling? I mean, Jimmy Beautiful. I would only come up with Jimmy Garvin.
Well, it was for when I was in bands, but when I was in, what was it? I guess it was 4th grade. They asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so my answer was, it wasn't that I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I wanted to be the pro wrestler's manager. Mm-hmm. So like, I wanted to be like the Bobby Heenan or the Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart. So Jimmy Beautiful still carries over into being one of those guys. I feel pretty well, and I will be the guy that's like yelling outside and then go and grab the ring bell and smack someone over the head with it, and then be like, "What? I didn't do anything." And it was also like, at that time, I think it was WrestleMania 8. That was the year that, like, when I was like, oh, that I had to write that thing, and Mr. Perfect was with Ric Flair, and he faced the Macho Man, and that was also the year I saw the Macho Man face Ric Flair in a steel cage, and that's when I knew wrestling was going to be something I was going to be watching for the rest of my life. But
for me, for me, it was WrestleMania 1, actually, in 82, right? Was it 82? I was a kid, and my parents made me stay up. Well, I could stay up. They were partying at home, and they allowed me to watch TV. And then all of a sudden, wrestling came on. I think it wasn't WrestleMania, obviously, but I think Superfly beat a gentleman called Bill Burger, who nobody knows, Mr. Bill Burger. And then he hit that top rope splash, and I was hooked as well. One question: if you're joining Turbojugend Lucha, is it mandatory to have a wrestling related name, just like Kevin Nash?
Yeah, I would say it's more a personal choice, really. It's what we did was we took the faction of the NWO, and originally I come up with it along with Anders and good friend Dave Rodders, and we came up with the TJWO.
Mm-hmm.
So
which is
the Turbojugend World Order.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just. Yeah, again, it's just the play on the wrestling factions. We thought we could make it Jugend related, so
Yes.
hence we've got him as Rodney Ramon. I'm Kevin. I'm Kevin Mash, and there's plenty of names out there and factions that we all have as well. I mean, Kato and Mika have now got like DO. So within the Turbojugend Lucha, we've got we were making T-shirts, patches, etc. So it's just like it's almost an inside joke within the actual chapter itself.
So what would, just as in wrestling, and that's actually a really good segue to my next question. What you're emulating is basically the fractions within wrestling, and you have sub fractions in the Jugend, so to set up a sort of a fun rivalry. That's a really good call.
Yeah. When we met up at the Weltturbojugendtage as well, it's like literally me and Dave actually pulled out a TJWO flag, and we started doing like little promos right there and then, just as a friendly. And they were like, "Oh, really?" And and we pulled out this flag. We started repping our T-shirts. We were getting more members to join us. Hence, that's why they then made up their faction. So, if you know the wrestling, it's really fun and really interesting to get into that as well.
So the idea is just as in wrestling, the TJWO World Order taking over the Jugend itself, the whole thing.
That's it, yes, one member at a time.
And how far do you think is being in wrestling with a gimmicky name, with a certain role, with certain character you have, and how far does this really compare to the Jugend, with us also choosing our own warrior names? Is it somehow related? Do you think that wrestling and Jugend has much in common, from the basic idea of having a sort of a parallel universe? Have you thought about that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again? Sorry.
When you look at wrestling, people have a real life persona and a in ring personality, right? A role, a character. Yeah. So, and it's basically the same thing happens in the Jugend, because we all have our regular names, right? And we have our warrior names in the Jugend, which is basically the same thing. We when we're in the Jugend, we're different personas, right? So would you think that this is the only thing, or is that something that the Turbojugend has in common with wrestling in general?
I think so. Yeah, because just like you would have like they say with kayfabe, you've got your character name and Jugend name. Whenever when I do get a Kuta with Kevin Mash on it, I know instantly I'm going to be playing that character. I'm going to be wearing my TJWO white gear. I'm going to be pulling promos. I'm going to be running along and then pull my quad and doing different promos and bits. So, yeah, it's like that's the whole thing. The beauty of wrestling is like the big over lavish characters and the gimmicks and everything as well. And like you said, I think that definitely does reflect with the people. And it's definitely something as well that our alter egos can be a part of our characters as well. So, I mean, when you look at Hamburg at the meetings, people I also dress up. I put makeup on and everything, and everybody. I see the tendency that people have their own gimmick going in a way.
Well, what's more over the top than pro wrestling and Turbo Negro? I mean, like you have to think where we have like the huge personalities, you have the fun, like just camp of it all. And then you also just have like, it almost feels like there's a whole storyline going along with all of it. And just we all want like pro wrestlers, rock stars, all of that. And we're just giant cartoon rock stars in the Turbojugend. Like that's what we all kind of identify, at least personally, that's how I feel. Like I'm a denim demon, like I'm coming out here and I'm wearing all of it and I'm repping this, and it's like, yeah, and it's more where it's like I'm not going to be full 100% that when I go into the office or something like that.
You better not. Yeah.
They like me a little bit there, at least. I can't be too over the top for them. But yeah, it's the big personalities, and it just seems to go really well hand in hand, that pro wrestling and Turbojugend and punk rock, and all of it just all blends together really well right here into Turbojugend Lucha.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when you look at wrestling, and I listen to others, all sorts of podcasts, and quite often lately, maybe even more than before, I hear wrestling references all the time from us back in the 80s, the golden era of wrestling, starting with the Hulkamania, the WrestleMania, and then all the way into the Monday Night Wars and everything. So they constantly reference wrestling. Do you also have the I'm openly asking you, what is your point of view on wrestling as a pop cultural phenomenon?
Well, it always has its place. If you think about in the 80s, everyone knew what Hulkamania was. And then when I was growing up, it was the 90s time. And so then there was like the NWO, like the TJ World Order and all of that. It's there. And then Hulk Hogan becoming Hollywood Hogan, Goldberg, all of that going on. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Monday Night Wars, The Undertaker. The Undertaker, I mean, that's just a given. He's known by everyone. Yes. But all of these, there was such a big thing in the 90s, and now all of the people that were in the 90s are my age and are now adults. So we're throwing out these random references that everyone gets because of how big it was at that time. And also being a wrestling fan, you get people say, "Oh, I used to watch it." So, at some point they knew some of the characters. They might not watch now, but they knew it in like 1996. So everybody can be like, "Oh, do you remember when Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart had the match and the Stone Cold passed out? Or when Mankind got thrown off the top of Hell in a Cell?" Like, yeah, everyone can identify with that because at that time, the majority of people watching TV are watching one or the other of the Monday Night Wars.
Yes. It was a big thing back then, which really, back then there was the internet, but not as well developed as right now. So somehow there were not too many things, not an insane amount of things going on.
Right.
And this is why everybody focused on it and could really remember everything. What's your Steve, I don't know if you were there some years ago at the Weltturbojugendtage. They had a wrestling extravaganza with
unfortunately, I wasn't at that one, but I did hear about it, and I would have absolutely loved to have been there myself personally, because I think that could just hand in hand from like the hardcore fans like ourselves to just the casual fans, because I think with wrestling you can have it seriously, but then you can have entertainment, and I mean, who wouldn't pop to hear the YMCA come out, just someone come out and just wear a denim jacket and, exactly. Something that it's definitely something that would cater for all of us. Everyone could root for the good guy, boo the bad guy. There's always definitely something in between.
What have you also noticed within the last years? I was in Eindhoven at the Speed Fest, or the follow-up event, and they had wrestling going on as well. So what they are mixing is punk rock and wrestling, sort of in Europe at least. I don't know about the States if you also have that. What's your take on this? It's not rock and wrestling, but it's this punk rock indie wrestling thing.
On the local type indie wrestling stuff, there's a lot of crossover. Like I live in Virginia now, but when I was living up in Cleveland, there's a wrestling group called AIW, Absolute Intense Wrestling, and they had people like Joey Janela was with them, and Johnny Gargano was used to be their trainer. But I know some of the guys in it, and he was in a great band, and like he was in a punk rock band, and now he's doing pro wrestling. It's just kind of that crossover on that level where it's like, okay, we can also do blood matches, where it's like, oh, if you were ever in a punk rock band, you probably bled from the head anyways. You might as well do it more safely than how you did it on stage. But there's a lot of crossover when it comes to that maybe not on the WWE level of like Monday Night Raw, but if you're like more like prominent local and independent wrestling circuits, you'll get a lot of oh, these people are, it's like metal, punk, and all of that type of stuff, grindcore, whatever. You'll get all the crazy people because we're all just crazy rock and rollers that like to do crazy stuff anyways. And some people just are more athletic.
I would have said the UK scene itself. I mean, one of the biggest companies at the time, Progress, literally was just punk rock wrestling. And it's like the combination of just punk rock and wrestling, everything was there. It was like the DIY setup at the start, the music that went through it and everything. You know, it was like one of the biggest UK promotions so far. And it definitely had that punk rock vibe and element to it.
Is that still going on? Is this thing, or has it faded away a bit?
Progress Wrestling at the moment, it's due to COVID and that at the moment, a lot of it's had to go to virtual. So it's all been, a lot of it's been online. And they've only just recently now also been added to the WWE network as well now. So just like a lot of the independent scenes, like some of the biggest UK independent ones are now part of WWE. Because, I mean, even though WWE is predominantly American, they do have NXT UK as well. So which has got a lot of the English talent are on there in their own show.
Okay, got it. Yeah, maybe in Hamburg we'll have it at a certain point later on. They pick this wrestling stuff. If they do a show with Weltturbojugendtage with wrestling, would you partake or would you like to work yourself into a storyline as the Turbojugend Lucha? Is that something you would thrive for?
Oh, absolutely. I would absolutely. I mean, probably wouldn't be able to compete medically, but just to be there, and I would absolutely be. I would love to be there repping the TJWO. That would be like one of the biggest storylines we could pull off easily, because we could easily amass lots of people there, make such a storyline throughout the night, and just use other wrestlers and use actual wrestlers as part of it. You know, I reckon we could easily pull off a huge event with that and host that easily, I reckon.
Yeah, that would be a really good call. Going back to the to wrestling moves. If there's any wrestling move, first of all, what's your favorite wrestling move from what the wrestlers actually perform on their opponents? Do you have a favorite move?
Yeah, mine always was the tombstone pole driver. It's it looks like one of the most devastating moves, especially if performed wrong as well. But whenever you saw it, as like you say, with Undertaker pulling just hoisting them up, legs in the air, just dropping them down on the head, folding the arms over. It's one of the most iconic moves.
Jimmy?
Yeah, that's always a good one. First wrestling match I saw, Undertaker and Papa Shango closed it out. That was the first one I ever went to live. It was great. A good power bomb, always a crowd pleaser. But also considering that the Macho Man Randy Savage was one of my favorites growing up. The elbow off the top rope, always good. I saw him drop it on Ric Flair. As I said earlier, that was also the match that I saw. I went and saw it at the Richfield Coliseum when I was like 8 years old, and Macho Man dropped the elbow off the top of a steel cage onto Ric Flair, and my little mind exploded.
Were you there? Did you watch?
Yeah, I was at that.
Oh
my
God!
Yeah, so my dad took me, and we went. The Macho Man dropped the elbow. Oh man, I lost it. I lost my mind. I'm like 30 years later, I was talking about it at some local event. Some guy's like, I was at that. And we just had like this moment, some stranger in like this small town baseball field seeing some pro wrestling. And we're like, oh my God, yeah, remember when he dropped it? Yeah. And then the Undertaker closed it out. We're like, yeah, I know. It was
certainly good memories.
Build up.
What is if you would have to pick a certain finishing move for Turbojugend, meaning like rough and tough and also homoerotic, what would the move be really? What is that? What be an appropriate move for the Turbojugend to finish off a wrestling match?
I think the two that I could pick that would definitely be I think Joey Ryan's the dick flip, as it's called.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing.
The most iconic is literally where he just forces his opponent to grab their crutch and then just flips them using nothing but the power of his crutch. That's definitely Jugend. That's definitely a Turbojugend. And the other one would definitely be the stink face from
That's a good one. I was thinking also maybe something like the mandible claw, since we'd be able to just jam our fingers down that throat really good.
That's also good.
Is that too inappropriate for this podcast? I'm sorry.
No. I'm proud of my explicit status, so that's all good. I mean, I would say everything that Bastian Booger did was kind of and Adrian. Mr. Adrian Adonis. I don't know if you guys are really familiar with him, but he was teaming up with Murdoch in the early 80s as a what was it, North-South connection, or was it East-West? I think East-West, because Adonis was from New York, and he took over that homosexual gimmick, right, with Adorable Adrian, which I to this day is my favorite gimmick ever. And basically everything he did was super gay and super appealing.
Yeah, I think that it was also the same for the UK scene as well, because it was very like frowned upon, and we had Gorgeous George, not Macho Man's manager, but the actual Gorgeous George as in English wrestler. And he would come out in almost like Ric Flair, the biggest, beautiful robe. He'd have the blonde locks, and he would literally ask them to perfume the mat as he would come in.
Oh, that works for me. Well, great. So I think we've wrapped it up pretty well. We maybe if the audience wants to know, I could think of that. How can you join? How can Jugens or how can other interested in the people join Turbojugend Lucha? What's that process behind that?
As far as I know, it's just the same way as normal via the Turbojugend.net. They can apply from that way, and we do also have the Facebook page as well, which can be found, which we gladly would post up for people to find, which would be Turbojugend Lucha, and we'd accept any invites. And I think that's open at the moment for anyone that's with a wrestling background to join.
And it's fun to just chat on it. And you get to also, when you go to events, you get to post pictures, and all your friends that are not dead, but they get to see all of it. And like a lot of good, funny wrestling memes, which always is a good time. So definitely go and check out Turbojugend Lucha on the Facebook.
But the basic idea is that you're joining Turbojugend Lucha after you are a member of another chapter, right? So is it an additional, or can somebody just join Turbojugend Lucha from scratch without no prior relation to Turbojugend?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of people that have joined primarily. I'm president of my own chapter. We've got other ones from other chapters. But I mean, if somebody wanted to come and join from scratch, really, or nothing, to straight into Turbojugend Lucha, if there was an interest in the wrestling and that, we're not saying we're not going to ban people that you haven't got interest in wrestling to know. The more the merrier.
Cool. All right, guys. So thank you for your time. Thank you for explaining to the world the parallel universe of wrestling. So there's certainly lots of stuff to learn from you guys. So I think we'll just look forward to the next events where we can meet in person. I would love to have wrestling part as one of the next Weltturbojugendtage schedule, so to say. Maybe they have it on the agenda again, and we'll talk again soon if you feel like it. We'll post all the respective links below in the Turbojugend Radio Facebook profile, so you can. We'll post your Jugend. We'll post some wrestling videos and maybe some wrestling related music. Right, dudes. Thank you so much. Have a nice one, and keep pile driving each other.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, with me at this time from Turbojugend St. Pauli, and I'm really trying my best to pronounce the name very right. Ascalator.
Pretty well.
From Turbojugend St. Pauli. I decided to call you because, as we all know, the Weltturbojugendtage are not taking place in Hamburg this summer. And I'm always curious, and I think the audience out there is curious as well, to get a glimpse on what might happen next year. And since you're a part of the organizing committee, you'll probably be able to give at least a few hints as far as next year are concerned, and maybe at the end a little bit a shimmer of recent hope.
I will try to and tell what is already possible to tell, which is not that much, but at least pretty positive.
Yeah. So, okay, hit us up. What are the activities behind the scenes right now in St. Pauli as far as the Weltturbojugendtage next year are concerned?
Now we have to struggle with two topics. Topic number one is, of course, the coronavirus, which is the same problem all over the world. And on second, we have the problems with the venue, since the Große Freiheit started to post pretty right-wing stuff, and is now in a corner, and all the booking agencies stopped to work with them. Also we did, and therefore the venue is not vacant for the upcoming years. At least if there is an owner change in the future, maybe there is a chance again, but for now the location is dead.
Okay, so Große Freiheit, it means how many people fit in the Große Freiheit? 1,000? 2,000?
No, it's more. I guess it's about 1.6 thousand. Yeah, and the second huge venue on St. Pauli, the Docks, is the same owner as the Große Freiheit, so the venue is dead as well. And this is the major problem the scene got in Hamburg for now.
Okay, so we are looking at the new. You guys are looking at the new venue for next year, but does this also mean that you guys are already working on it for next year?
We are working very frequently on it, and we're pretty deep in it as well. And also our partners are working very, very often and hard on it. They're the partners. So they don't work just for this event. They got a lot of events besides and the entire tours. So we're not number one, but our partners are in charge as well, and this is good.
Okay, but
there are some possibilities about the venues where we can start the gathering, but for now nothing is signed, and due to this we can't announce anything.
Okay, but we can announce that at least there are positive feelings, and there's the absolute will to do it again next year.
Indeed.
But depending on the known circumstances, there's lots of things that have to fall right in order to make it happen.
Correct, and the entire situation is very dynamic. We don't know what happens in 1 or 2 months, so it makes no sense to announce anything which you can't promise. And therefore it's just the rough overview currently.
Okay, so at what point, what do you think when will you be able to draw out the first details of the event next year?
We hope to be in charge in fall time. When it's in fall time, this is again up to this situation coming up, but I guess fall time should be pretty positive to do so.
When looking at this at certain date, are you guys, because the Weltturbojugendtage have always taken place on a certain weekend? Is that also a thing you can announce right now, or?
Yeah, we hope to keep the thing going like in the past years. But again, due to the situation, we can't announce a date yet, because there are tours from 2 years now in 1 year, and anything which is possible to book is usually already booked.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, as long as nothing is signed, we can't say anything. It's also about the money from our partner side, so we have to do what they want, and it's absolutely okay, in my opinion.
Okay. So when in the fall when you'll be able to announce it, this would be what would your recommendation be for the people? Should they then first of all book reserve a hotel, not which they can also cancel at some later point?
I can't see in the future, so I would say just act like in the last years when you've been to Hamburg. Since the idea is to keep the things going as we already know the Weltturbojugendtage days.
Okay, so what I would do personally, I would just try to book a hotel room, but always make sure you could cancel it as soon as you announce the date.
Yeah, because therefore you don't need to be a magician to act like this, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So that is next year. So not too much to say really, other than there's an absolute need and absolute you guys want to put it on, but still so many factors with the whole issue that's we have to look at the later conversation in the fall. But okay, so that's next year. But then this year, there is no official Weltturbojugendtage, and probably people will still come to Hamburg as long as you can travel. I've heard people going there, and as you were telling me beforehand, there's also something actually taking place there.
Indeed, yeah. I got a side project with also Zupi from Turbojugend St. Pauli and 3 other friends, and we started in the beginning of the year when the lockdown was pretty tight, to start streaming shows from a venue called Knust, which is also here in Hamburg, and this turned out pretty well. So it was an interactive way to have some subculture things and not the highlight movies on TV. And the result therefore was that we were asked to organize a festival or an open air, and it turns out that it is exactly the same weekend as the Turbojugend days this year were announced already. Hell. So it was an idea to get the things together. Just like we know there are some people in town, we know which kind of music they like, we know there is a lot of subculture in St. Pauli, and this fits together. So just mix it up and have a good time. It will be 2 days. It will be streamed for free for all the people who would love to attend but are not able to. The entire show is streamed. There are some interviews with the bands, and maybe also with the audience. We have to see how the restrictions are, but we are willing to have a really good time then.
Okay, so we're looking at Friday, the 30th of July, and Saturday, the 31st of July, with two days with concerts. People are probably eager to know what bands will be playing. Is the lineup? I would suppose the lineup is almost set or has to be set.
Yeah, the lineup is set. It's three acts per day. This is also due to some restrictions we have. It was back in the days. It was planned as 1 day with more bands, but so we have to split. Those are all German bands, which is also, of course, due to the pandemic. And the most of them are also from the Hamburg area to support the scene in here, because if you don't have a scene, you can't start anything.
Mm-hmm.
So on Friday, it's a band from Hamburg called Gallows Society. It's, I would say, Ramones like 1, 2, 3, 4, a well-known program. Narcoleptic, they're more known also. They're also from Hamburg, but they're also touring in Asia, so not that small. It's, I would say, California surf punk. And the last one, It's a bit special. They are called Kochkraft durch KMA, pretty German. And this is pretty tight electropunk. But it works out just perfect. If you don't know them, just check them out. And on the second day, it's also a band from Hamburg. It's also a Turbojugend band. It's called Blast Bomb, with straight rock and roll, I would say.
What Jugend is in it? Which Jugend?
It's Turbojugend Elmshorn.
Okay. So shout out to the guys.
The next one is Surfits. They're also from Hamburg. This is also a Turbojugend band. I guess also the same chapter, Elmshorn. And it's ska punk. And the last act of the third day is Vel Sinestra from Berlin. Not that easy to describe. I would say it's a mix from the Bronx, Refuse, maybe Turbo Negro, a lot of booze in, and this is the result. Pretty powerful. So check them out. They also work out. They also use German lyrics, but they work out international as well, in my opinion.
Okay, cool. So we're looking at 6 bands in 2 days.
Indeed.
Where's the whole thing gonna be taking place?
This is taking place on the skating area, which is located in Planten und Blom, the park where the mini golf tournament is also taking place. And it's a well-known stage. If you have to be in Hamburg for the famous Harbor birthday, this is the Jolly Roger stage. So it's, I guess, 10 meters wide, which is not that small. And the entire open air is suited for 500 persons.
Oh, okay. How can people get the tickets?
On Tix for Gigs, or if you check the Facebook events, I guess the Weltturbojugendtage days are also a host. So just follow the event, and there is a ticket link also.
But just for the record, it's that this is not the Weltturbojugendtage on short notice. This is a different event.
This is a different event, correct? And yeah, we're just mixing up things together, just also due to the chance we have to, and it suits for us, for the rest of the people who show up, and yeah, will be good weekend, I guess.
Yeah. So if there are any German Jugends out there who were not able to cancel the hotel in Hamburg, there's something actually you can actually do and go there. So it's 6 concerts on 2 days in Planten und Blom. You guys are all familiar with that. So very happy to hear that Turbojugend St. Pauli and you guys are setting something up even on short notice.
At least something is happening, and the people were also all the time yelling for live shows. Now there is a chance to have live shows, so go and support the things. If it's not in Hamburg, it's taking place anywhere. But the scene is got pretty major problems after or in this pandemic. So if you love concerts, support the scene.
Spend some money on good music. Yes. All right. So
this was my pizza, so fits perfectly.
All right. Thank you for your time. Thank you for updating us. Thank you for setting up this event in Planten und Blom this summer. I'll be making sure we're gonna be meeting or talking in the fall as soon as anything is official. So
correct.
You'll be getting
yes.
another call. Until then, enjoy your pizza, enjoy the summer, and enjoy the mini festival.
Same to you. All the best. Cheers to you guys. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Presented by
So yeah, another episode of Turbojugend Radio is in the box. We learned about the Turbojugend Lucha and wrestling in general. And we learned about the organization of next year's Weltturbojugendtage in Hamburg and an upcoming event within the next days in Hamburg for mostly the Turbojugens in Hamburg or at least in Europe. So that was good. And I'm finishing up this episode with a tribute to, wrestling as such, tribute to the Ramones. One of the lesser publicly known tracks, I would say, by the only the Ramones of their last studio album, Adios Amigos, a song called The Crusher, performed not by Joey Ramone, but by CJ Ramone, who's, by the way, still active and still doing still on tour. And I've seen him various times, and I can only really strongly recommend go see CJ Ramone, because he's still very, somehow very capable of transporting that Ramones musical feel that the band itself had, and it still has it. And he plays the song The Crusher, which is a reference to a wrestler in the Madison Square Garden in New York. So I choose this rather unknown song by the Ramones as this week's Cream Puff. Kudos again to my guests of this episode, who were able to join me with all the information and all the discussion about the various Jugend-related topics. If you guys, some housekeeping at the end, feel like having something in mind to contribute to the podcast, some topic you want to really discuss with yours truly, just head up to Facebook, look for Beste Turbojugend Sängerknaben Wien, go to the Turbojugend Radio Facebook page, to that group, hit me up, and we'll find a way of getting you onto the podcast. So let's have fun with the Ramones. Let's have fun with The Crusher, performed by the one, the only CJ Ramone.